Welcome into this Five Clubs conversation. I'm Gary Williams. The guy who's joining me did a hell of a lot in amateur golf. He won the U.S. Pub Links. He won the U.S. Amateur. He was part of a victorious Walker Cup team. He did all that in 1 year, which puts him in the company of the first greatest superstar in golf that America ever knew, and that was Bobby Jones. And he went on and was making his way in professional golf, and then he wasn't. And what was he going to do? Well, he turned to television, and now he's becoming a star when it comes to talking about the game of golf at the network level. And I'm talking about Colt Knost. And Colt has got his podcast, the Subpar podcast with Drew Stoltz. He's got his radio program on SiriusXM called Graving the Sleaze that you can listen to 12 to 2 Eastern time, Monday through Wednesday. And that is also with Drew Stoltz. And then he is now a big part of the CBS golf broadcast team. How did this all happen? And where did it all start? That's coming up with Colt Knost. With that, we welcome in Colt Knost. Colt, how are you, buddy?
I'm fantastic, Gary. Really appreciate you having me on.
Listen, I have wanted to do this because, you know, I go back to the first time I saw you in a television environment. It was actually in the hallway at the Golf Channel studios in Orlando, and you were kind of dipping your toe in the water. And I don't know if that was 18 or 19. Do you remember when that was?
It was when I was hurt and I was still playing. It might have been even 17. Okay. 17, 18, sometime around there. I did a week at Golf Central, which was very, very interesting.
Well, you've come an awful long way in a very short amount of time, and we're going to talk about the career. But I want to start though because, you know, most people are going to associate you with Dallas, with SMU, Garrettsville, Ohio. Which I was looking up Garrettsville, Ohio, Northeast Ohio, little tiny town where you were born. Who was from Garrettsville, Ohio?
Yeah, so that's where my mom and dad were. A lot of people don't know like my whole backstory. My dad passed away when I was very, very young, and my mom moved to Texas when I was probably 2.5 years old. So I picked up a Texas accent pretty quickly. So a lot of people don't really associate me with Ohio. I mean, people ask where I'm from. I normally say Texas. It's just easier that way. But yeah, I still have some family up in the Ohio area and everything. I actually took a recruiting trip to Kent State, which is close to Garrettsville. Coach Herb Page there, who's a legend who I'd known for a long time. I went up there. He was the only place I was considering going to school up north. And it's just kind of because it was home. He was incredible. But I went on a recruiting trip in December and there was a foot of snow on the ground. And they were hitting balls in the field house, and I'm like, I can't do this.
The decision to pursue golf. Take me through the early part of your life when you started to narrow your focus to the game of golf. Why was it? What was the curiosity, and then what was it about the passion that you gained from the game of golf? Where did that all stem from?
So I've always been just an absolute sports junkie. Every single sport, loved it, played it. Realized at a young age, at about 12, I probably wasn't going to be 6'2", 180. So that kind of led to things a little bit, but I didn't pick up golf till I was 12 years old. For a small town that I grew up in Texas, we actually had 4 or 5 really, really good golfers that were my age that I grew up with. One was one of the best in the state of Texas, this kid named Travis Irick. And he was obsessed. I mean, he was all in, putting green in the backyard, everything. And I just picked up the game and fell in love with it. Gave me something to do to stay competitive, and I got pretty good pretty fast. And we had a pretty good, for like I said, for the town we grew up in with no golf course also, we had a pretty damn good high school team. So it was cool. And from there, I just kept going, man. I fell in love and I was obsessed, and that's all I wanted to do.
Are you talking about Pilot Point?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, give everybody a sense of where is Pilot Point in conjunction to the other major metropolitan areas in the state of Texas?
Yeah, so it's about an hour north of Dallas.
Okay.
It's about 30 minutes from the Oklahoma border. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's a horse country town. It's a football town. If you've seen Friday Night Lights, about Odessa and Midland, we're a smaller version of that. The town shuts down Friday night. The football stadium is packed. We got like the winningest Texas high school football coach ever is a guy named G.A. Moore, who was at Pilot Point and then also at the rival school, Salina. But it was a football town, man. But I was fortunate. I had a lot of support there in Pilot Point. We drove to a golf course that was like 20 minutes away to play. And man, I was hooked. Like I've told you, like people are like, you ever get tired of talking about golf? And I'm like, honestly, no. Like I live for it. This is what I love to do. Being out there in the fairways, walking with these guys, it still gets my adrenaline going, even though I'm just talking about it. I love everything about the game. When I'm not talking about it or not out there, I'm watching it or playing it.
You said to me, I was lucky enough you had asked me to co-host your show recently, and somebody associated with Oklahoma State was on, and you said, yeah, it's because Mike Holder didn't recruit me. When you were coming out of high school, what was your status as a junior in terms of the pro? You mentioned Kent State. Were you among the 5 to 10 best players in the state of Texas coming out of high school? No,
not even close. I was hardly talked to by any schools, really. I didn't play a lot of AJGAs. I started to my senior year in high school, and so I got on the map a little bit. I got an offer from OU and from Texas Tech because of my swing coach Randy Smith, who made some calls for me, which was super nice. North Texas was interested, which was like 20 minutes from Pilot Point, and then some small, like Division II schools and stuff like that. But I'll never forget. I played the Byron Nelson Junior Invitational down at Lakewood Country Club in Dallas and played pretty well both years. But I one day just got an email from Coach Jay Loris, said, "Hey, I watched you tee off on the first hole. Think you got some potential. What do you think about coming to SMU?" So I went down and met with him and the assistant coach Tom Harris. And, I was supposed to go to OU, I think the next week for a look, and canceled. Just knew that SMU was a perfect fit for me. It was 10 minutes away from Randy, which I had just started working with him for about 8 months. And I knew if I wanted to, take this seriously and try to make a profession out of it, I wanted to be by Randy Smith. He was a huge, huge role in that. And I tell kids this all the day, like playing college golf, it doesn't really matter where you go. It's not like you don't have to get the exposure. You don't get drafted because no matter what, you have to go out and perform. And whether it's go to Q school or be good enough to get sponsor exemptions, you got to go to a college where you can play. I mean, it's cool to say you played golf at Oklahoma State, but if you never get in the lineup, it's no big deal. And I've seen a lot of guys really struggle when they leave their swing coach. They go across the country to a college and they lose their game. I was lucky enough that every day after class, if I wanted, I could go over to Royal Oaks Country Club and work with Randy. And I mean, that was a huge part of my success.
When did you feel, was there a tournament, was there a semester that you felt like you made a big leap? Because what you did before you left SMU and turned professional is historic. When you're in a conversation with the likes of Jay Siegel, who's one of the great career amateurs, before he eventually, decided he was going to play a little professional golf after 50, and Bobby Jones, that's tall cotton. I mean, was there a time that you made a big leap?
I would say, yeah. I mean, I was one of those guys that I just got better every single year. Like I remember my first round of qualifying for SMU, we were carrying like 14 guys and only 5 guys make it to the first tournament. And I shot 77 the first round in qualifying. I'm like, I'm in so far over my head. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And throughout that qualifying process, I kept going. And I actually made the first tournament, and I never missed a tournament my entire college career, which was something I was really proud of. Because, I mean, you can have down times here where you struggle, and I never was out of the lineup once. But I would say my junior year is when I really, really started to believe, like, I'm getting good at this. I might be able to compete. I think I won twice my junior year. And then my senior year, just everything clicked. I won the first 3 tournaments of the year in the fall at SMU. And then that carried over to I didn't finish outside the top 10 until regionals. So, I mean, I basically played 12 straight events where I top 10'd every week. I think I won 4. But then I Monday qualified for the Byron Nelson, and that's when everything changed for me. I was playing so good, going into that Monday qualifier. I told Randy I was going to make it. I knew I was. And I went out there and I shot 64 and got in a playoff with Michael Allen and a guy named Michael Boyd that turned on, that was on tour for a little bit. And I birdied the first playoff hole, got in, obviously was so excited to play in a PGA Tour event. It's something I dreamed of, especially the Byron Nelson, which is the first PGA Tour event I ever attended. I mean, I was 12 years old and Tiger signed my hat. I'll never forget it. But to go out there, that's when we still played Cottonwood and TPC for the Byron Nelson when I was over at Las Colinas. Went out, could hardly get the ball on the tee. The first round shot 74, which it's the easier course of the two. And then I went over to Four Seasons Friday and just was like, you know what, might as well enjoy it. And I went out and was shot 64 with a bogey on the last hole. Was in, I think, 10th place going into the weekend, and didn't really play that great on the weekend. But that changed everything for me. Knowing that, I shot the low round of the tournament at a PGA Tour event when I was in college, and it was so cool. And that's what set me going. That summer then I played so great, obviously winning the three titles. But I played well at the Porter Cup, the Northeast Am, the Western Am. Every single one of those big ones, I was a factor. And it was just, that's one of the reasons like people question my decision to turn pro.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for the Masters, which I know is something we always get into. But when you look at it the way I was, like I had played basically a year straight where I top 10'd every single week I played, no matter what it was. Like I was just so consistent, playing so great. My stock was as high as it was ever going to be after we won the Walker Cup. And I got the opportunity to turn professional, play in 3 PGA Tour events that fall. And I was like, man, I honestly believe I can go out and contend right away. Like my game is in good a form. Like what if I wait till April, what could happen? And so that was what a lot of what went into my decision was I was riding a high and I didn't want to stop.
Yeah, by virtue of, obviously, you mentioned the 3 titles, and again, that is the company of Jones and Siegel winning the 3 USGA titles in a year. You win the Pub Links, you win the U.S. Amateur, you're on a victorious Walker Cup team. You went 2-0-2 in that Walker Cup. Let me ask you this way regarding the decision to forego the exemptions into majors the following year, starting obviously with the Masters. If NIL existed then, in 2007, and let's say the money was what I think it's going to be like and kind of is already now, which I think is going to keep some college golfers playing college golf for maybe another year, would maybe things have been different?
I think 100%. That's a great point. If I would have gotten the money I did to stay in an amateur or stay in college, I was done with college, but to stay, if I had the opportunity to stay as an amateur and make the money I did got to turn professional, yeah, that's a total game changer. The only thing I've ever wanted to do growing up was play in the Masters. There's no doubt. But at the same time, I know there's a decision to move forward. What's best for me, what's best for my family. And, I wasn't doing this for one tournament. I was doing this for a career and I was ready to go. I didn't play the way I wanted, but I went out and got on the Korn Ferry Tour and won twice, really early there. And so, everything was going in the right direction. It didn't work out the way I wanted it to, but hell, man, I'm having the time of my life doing what I'm doing now.
No, I know you are. And I want to get to something you said probably within the last 6 months or so, which I appreciated the fact that you said it. But before we get to kind of the pivot in your career, when you turn professional and you win right away, like you did, it's interesting. I don't know who it was over the weekend that I was talking to. It was a major champion who said he thought it was harder to win on the Korn Ferry Tour than it was on the PGA Tour because you got to shoot nothing, and there's a sense of almost not borderline recklessness, but arrogance with the way you have to play because you have to shoot 2,500 every week, and you win twice, and you get your card. Did you ever have any crisis of confidence early on when you got there for whatever reason?
I would say, if I could go back and do it all over again, like I was a hard worker. And when I had the success in 2007, then I went to the Korn Ferry and won twice. I think I finished 6th on the money list, only playing like 18 or 19 events because I was playing 6 events on the PGA Tour as well that first season. Everything was coming so easy. I had the historical 2007. I win twice on the Korn Ferry Tour. I'm going to the PGA Tour. I'm like, man, I'm going to go out and win on the PGA Tour, and this is going to be the start of a long career. And I stopped working the way I used to. That's the only thing I regret. I was having there's, as you know, there's a lot of stuff that goes on the PGA Tour. There's a lot of distractions that a young guy really likes to enjoy. And I got caught up in that a little bit too much, I would say. That's the one thing I regret is that, I didn't work the way I did in college in my first year on the Korn Ferry Tour when I got to the PGA Tour at first. And that's the one thing that probably will always eat at me a little bit. But, it is what it is. Yeah, I had a terrible rookie year. But then finally, slowly, after a couple of seasons, started to get comfortable out there.
Look, the idea of getting distracted, how guys don't is pretty extraordinary. to some degree, and some guys get more distracted than others. Did you not feel, or maybe you didn't do this at all, getting around veterans, getting around people who would tell you, hey, don't Monday night, I get it. Tuesday and Wednesdays. Did you ever appeal to anybody who was a senior peer that you could have said, hey man, advice, I'll take any and at all times?
Yeah, I had obviously some advice from those guys, and I had some guys that I didn't ask for it pull me aside. Justin Leonard's always been fantastic to me. He grew up with Randy Smith. He kind of took me under his wing when I got out there, and there was one point where it's like, hey, yeah, let's clean it up a little bit. You got a great opportunity out here. This tour card, if you don't perform, you don't just get it right back. Like, you got to go back to where you were, and I know you don't want to do that. So, yeah, I've leaned on a lot of guys over the years. Even Vijay Singh, I played a lot of practice rounds with him. Love picking his brain. People don't know it. Vijay's a funny man. And he loves to gamble on the golf course like I do. We had some great battles, great trash talking. But I always leaned on those veterans. I like I said, I had a great support system. Phil Mickelson was a guy that reached out to me when I was getting ready to turn pro and trying to figure out the decision. And he's always been same thing, just awesome, so supportive. He texted me during my rookie year. I was like, hey, I know you're not off to the start you want to, but you're good enough to win out here. Just relax and go play. And you don't have to do those things. It's just, it's so nice. But that's how it is out here on the PGA Tour, I think, a lot. I know it's an individual game, but people got big support systems out here, even though I don't think you see it day in and day out.
No, Colt, I think something that people, and look, they shouldn't be spending a lot of time thinking about what's the environment like. But the reality is that it is a nomadic existence. You're out there alone, and you can identify with everybody else because whether they have kids yet or not, or they have a girlfriend or a fiance or a wife, it's lonely as hell. And it can be very, very lonely. And the only people who can understand it are the guys you're competing against. So as much as you can say, well, once the tournament starts, it's cutthroat. Yeah, but there's a lot of compassion that I see, and I saw it Sunday. I was in the Tulsa airport and saw Mito Pereira make double, and it felt like half the field in Colonial was on my flight to Dallas because they were, and all of them. I could see their body language. They know there was nothing but compassion for what he was dealing with over the course of that 20 minutes. And I think there's a lot of that out there.
You're exactly right. You see it. I think you see it more today than even back when, Tiger was on his run, like the guys waiting for guys behind 18 when they're winning and stuff like that. You go back to Sunday, I had Justin Thomas's group coming in, and I was told to stay next to him when he went to the range and all that. So I didn't get to see I could hear him making double, but I didn't get to see it. But I ran into the locker room real quick before we went out for the playoff, and I'm walking out, and in came Abe Answer, Joaquin Neiman, and Sebastian Munoz. Are obviously all very, very close. And like you said, you could see, I walked by him, I was like, sorry guys. I didn't know what to say. You could just see they were hurting for him. And it's sad to see, but it's cool to see at the same time that these guys care that much for their friends.
You mentioned a few minutes ago about getting hurt. When you start dealing with injury, at what point did you start to think about your own mortality as a touring professional?
Yeah, it was interesting because 2015, I finally played pretty solid. Had I think top 10s, and then I got 6th, and I started playing really, really well. That's where I attended at the Player. Had a few other top 5s that season. Was sitting in the best position going into the playoffs I ever had. And I started feeling some pain in my left thumb, and didn't really think anything of it. Had it looked at a couple of times. It was no big deal, just some inflammation. Just needed to slow things down a little bit. But I was playing so well, I didn't want to do anything to it. So I kept playing. And listen, I don't hit it very far as it is. I was one of the shortest guys out there, but I noticed the club head speed kept going down and down and down, and I'm like, we got a problem. And so I got misdiagnosed with my thumb injury. Actually, they went in and looked at my wrist and said it was bad, so they cleaned it up. Was out 9 months. That's when I think I did the Golf Channel thing. Came back, hit a shot at Byron Nelson on the range, and felt something in the thumb, and I was like, this is not good. Went to a guy here in Dallas. He looked at it, and he's like, dude, whoever told you there's nothing wrong with your thumb? We got a problem. Your UCL ligament's pretty much completely torn. And that's where the thing that had been bothering me the most was the thumb. That's the same injury that Paula Kramer and Anthony Kim dealt with. It's a popular injury for golfers. There's a lot of stress on the left thumb. So went in again. I had to sit out another 9 months, and then come back. And it was frustrating. I mean, I basically played, felt like 10 events in 2 years, which it's just so hard to sit out that long and come back and compete at the best level. And so I knew when that medical exemption was running out, things were not looking good for the golf career. But, I was fortunate enough during that time when I was hurt to do a week at the Golf Channel, to do a couple of events with, CBS and Golf Channel in the booth. Got the SiriusXM show started thanks to Scott Greenstein over at SiriusXM. And, things were starting to take off. We were getting talked about quite a bit with our show. And then we started the podcast Subpar. And I also got, I did the PGA Championship at Harding Park. And this is pretty much when I knew I was done with the game of golf. And I asked Mike McQuaid, I was doing the ESPN stuff. I was like, can you let me go down on the ground one time? I've never done it. I would love to be roaming the fairways. And he said, let's do it. And from the second I went on air that day, I knew that's where I belonged. And I got to thank him for, letting me do that, because it's been just a total game changer for me.
Yeah, that was the quote I was talking about when you said pretty recently, within the last 6 months or so, you did an interview with somebody and you said, I felt like what I'm doing now was what I was born to do. Uh-huh. And before we get to all of those things that you've got going on, and the trajectory is steep and impressive, I wanted to mention this because it's, when you face, like, it's the only thing you wanted to do, and you were able to fulfill that dream, and you don't know how long it's going to last. And I did the Carolina Panthers preseason TV for 4 seasons, and Jake Delhomme was a quarterback at the time. And he almost won a Super Bowl, lost a hell of a Super Bowl to the New England Patriots. And one preseason at training camp, they had a very good strong safety. His name was Mike Minter, went to Nebraska, good player. And his career ended after 8 years. And he was bone on bone with his knee. And I'm looking in his retirement press conference. I'm looking at Delhomme in the back of the room, and he's got his head hanging. When it's over, I said, why were you in here? He said, 1, he's a teammate, and 2, I always want to remind myself that I'm not guaranteed anything. This could end at any moment. Now, we know about the violence of football, but when it's the only thing you've ever known, did you worry at any point, like, Jesus, what am I going to do here? Before those opportunities started to come, did you go, I really don't know what I'm going to do?
100%. I mean, I always say this. I think, whether you consider me an athlete or not, I played a professional sport, but I don't think any of us ever have a plan B. I'm going to go out, I'm going to be successful, and I'm going to do it for a very long time. And then I'm going to ride off into the sunset. Well, it obviously ended quicker than I thought it would. And so there was a little bit, yeah, no doubt. I mean, I had to make that decision. Do I want to go down a path that I've never done before? I mean, I've never done any media stuff. That's not me. All I've been is on the other side. So that was scary. It was either that or I go back to the Korn Ferry Tour and try to grind it out down there to get back to the PGA Tour. So yeah, that was tough. I mean, that last event in Phoenix, I mean, it was crazy emotional. I mean, because it's over, and I made that choice to go to this side, which I'm super happy with now. But at the end, and it still is, like, knowing that it's over, it sucks.
Yeah. And that's, again, people go, God, how they, I don't know why they can't adjust. What are you talking about? They're 30 years old. It's the only thing they've ever known. Yeah. And it may be a little bit longer for others. And you're seeing more and more of these docuseries and the examinations of the athlete. And Andy Roddick was on Jay Billis's show here on 5 Clubs. And he said, all I was thinking was, like, what's next? Like, you don't know, like, what is next? Regardless of how successful you've been, but you are a fan. Did you watch a lot of golf on television? And if you did, what was your impressions? Did you think it's pretty good? It could be, everything can always be better. What were your thoughts about the way that golf was presented?
I'm a huge fan, and I watch every tournament, every weekend. I mean, that's just what I do. I mean, that's what I grew up. I love golf. I want to watch my friends play well. So yeah, I did. And I love the broadcast. I mean, when Faraday and McCord were together, I loved it. I'm a huge fan of those guys. And I mean, those 2 are the guys that really have helped me a lot. That's true. I mean, Gary McCord's a member at Whisper Rock. I've talked to him about it. I'll never forget the first one I did was at Riviera, and they had me in 16 tower, and I had no clue what I was doing. I mean, there was no prep. It's sink or swim. It's like, here's a headset. Let's see what you got. And he pulled me aside. He goes, what are you doing? And I was like, what? He's like, that was not you on there today. He goes, be you, show me something. You know, these guys, give me something. And that was a big pep talk for me. It's people always think that they think they can do TV, and then the red light goes on and you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, just because you got a great personality in the locker room doesn't mean it's going to carry over to TV. So like I said, I was always a big fan of those two guys. When they got separated, I thought it was bad for golf. It just
Totally
really was.
agree.
The entertainment factor kind of went away. And Gary McCord, one of the best to ever do it. I mean, he's different. That's what makes him great. It's either you love him or you hate him, but he was different. And that's what made things great. He has always told me, the broadcast has got to be like a sitcom, right? If all 5 people in the show are the exact same person, it's going to suck. Like, it's just, there's nothing there. You got to have different characters. And so I think we're starting to get that way now. Like, obviously, I'm different than anybody else on our team. And I think that's what makes it more successful. I try to bring some energy, try to bring some humor. And I've been out there and I know these guys as well as anybody. So I've always been a big fan of past players going over and doing it because they know what it's like. They know what it feels like coming down the stretch. Now, I've never contended for a major, but I know what Mito Pereira was feeling on that 18th tee, trying to win a golf tournament. And you saw him make a golf swing that he's never made in his life before. I mean, that was terrifying what I saw on 18. I mean, the way he went through the golf ball, I'm like, he's never done that in his life. But that's what shows you what the pressure does to these guys.
No question.
It's fascinating to me. Like, I wish the people at home could understand like what he was feeling in that moment.
No doubt. I'm right there with you. I've always been that is, my curiosity with athletics. My dad was a very good athlete, played college baseball at a high level, got me into sports. And when I topped off physically when I was about 9, I started to just observe, and it was performance, it was achievement, how they do it, how they keep things slow when everything around him is getting really, really fast. And what happened to him on 18, somebody made the observation, I guess there was a guy standing there, he looks like he just got electrocuted. Because he probably felt like he just got electrocuted. Because that is what happens. I want to go through the progression of these entities that you're building and have helped to build. And let's start with Gravy and the Sleaze. Let's start with the radio program, because the two of you, it's such a perfect yet odd combination between a guy who achieved everything as an amateur, played on the PGA Tour, and a guy who obviously was a good player. And you both can run smack as well as anybody. But it's different. How did Drew Stoltz and Colt Knost get married on the radio?
So, he went to TCU, I went to SMU. We were there at the same time. So we knew each other. We weren't best of friends or anything like that. But when I decided to move out to Scottsdale while I was still playing and join Whisper Rock, he was a member there. And it was just, there was 2 voices on the range at all times, me and him. And if you ever got paired with us, I think you hated it. You damn sure didn't want to play us together because we just wore you out verbally and just drove everyone nuts. And we always talked about possibly doing something one day if it worked, but we needed that opportunity. Like, neither of us were smart enough just to go out and be able to start our own podcast or anything like that. And so when I was in LA doing the TV for Golf Channel, I got a phone call from Scott Greenstein, who's president of SiriusXM. And he's like, I'm in LA. I've heard a lot about you. I want to meet you. I said, sure, love to. So we went into the dining area at Riviera Country Club, sat down, talked for 10 minutes with him and his wife. He goes, I'm going to give you a show. And I'm like, wow, well, that was fast. I don't even know if I want to do this or whatever, but all right, we'll give it a try. And I was like, can I bring somebody on, or do you want it to be me? He's like, it's your show. Do whatever you want. And I said, all right. So got in the car, was driving back to the hotel, super excited, called Drew and said, I got us a show. We're going to start the week of the Masters, I believe, was our first episode. And we started out one day a week on a Monday for an hour. And about 2 months in, they're like, we want more. And so then we started agreeing to go to 3 days a week for 2 hours. They wanted us to go to 5 days a week, which just doesn't work with my schedule, but it's just crazy. It's just taken off, and it's been so much. I mean, I tell everybody, I was like, I'm getting paid. I wake up in the morning, I make a coffee, I go up to the office, Drew comes over, we put the headset on, and we basically just sit and talk for 2 hours, and we get paid for it. Like, it's ridiculous to think about it. And I love it so much. It's a blast. I mean, he is just He's crazy. You know him. I mean, he's one of the wittiest people I've ever been around in my life.
He is. He really is. And it could have been the dynamic could have been, and I was dying lousy. And as I told him yesterday before I was doing a show that was following his, and you had the day off because you were at Taylor Gooch's foundation event, and I said I have never, since Ben Crenshaw is in contention anywhere, I have never humped a USGA.com website like I did for the four ball last week. Had he won, he would have joined you as you're a three-time USGA champion. And I could just hear him. I could hear him going until the end of time saying, and joining us now as a fellow USGA champion, Rory McIlroy. And that he was denied that. No, he was gutted about it. But you guys do have something. And just to peel back a layer, you mentioned Scott Greenstein. I worked full-time at Sirius in 09 and 10, doing the morning show on Mad Dog Radio. And I also did PGA Tour Radio. And Scott at that time was ambivalent about the PGA Tour Radio channel. And I was like, God, he doesn't get it. And now everything's changed. He's a complete maniac about golf. And the most important thing is I've told Taylor Zarza, who runs the channel, and this was a couple of years ago before you guys started, because I would drive into Golf Channel. I'm like, why don't they have enough? They don't have enough tour players on a channel that is their brand. And now you guys get everybody because of your relationships, and you've totally changed what people are hearing now. It used to be, Colt, it wasn't like that. You know that.
Yeah. No, it has. And I mean, whether that's because of us or whatever, I don't know. My whole deal is, I listen to the channel when I'm in the car quite a bit. And my whole deal, I tell Sleaze all the time, and I tell all the guys at Sirius, like, I don't want to be like any of the other shows. Like, I want to be different. I want to stand apart. Because, I mean, we can turn on all the shows when they're recapping Justin Thomas's win at the PGA Championship. A lot of it, we're all going to say the same thing. So let's make it fun. Let's make it different. I mean, we try to, and we get these guys on who they do their interviews on TV and they're so buttoned up and they don't let anything go. And I'm like, here we are. We got 15 minutes with these guys on SiriusXM where they can say whatever the hell they want. Like, let's show that they have some personality. Let's reveal some stuff about them that people don't know. Nothing bad, just to show that they're humans that are just really, really good at a sport. That's what I tell people. Like we had Jordan Spieth on our podcast one time, and we video it just like y'all do here. And he had 3 beers, and some guy's like, I cannot believe he was drinking. I'm like, at the time, it was a 27-year-old kid from Texas. What do you think he does in an off week? Like, just because he's Jordan Spieth, the golden child, the poster boy for American golf, like, dude, he's a kid from Texas. I mean, that's all we know. Like, you have an off week, you're sitting there talking with your boys, you have some beers.
Exactly.
Who cares? Yeah. He's just way better at a sport than all y'all are. He still likes to do everything that y'all do.
You mentioned the podcast. To me, I'm so glad you guys have it because, look, you get these 10, 12-minute hits that you get with everybody in the game on Gravy and the Sleaze. But what you've done through the Subpar podcast with what I think is, you get some jet fuel with golf and golf.com. And I asked you last week, I said, did they give you the autonomy to do what you want? And you said they do. Did that start from the beginning?
No, it did not. And I'm very comfortable in saying that. There was a lot of things, it started out with, and we've changed, people behind the scenes quite a bit. But I mean, it started out where they were trying to get us to ask certain questions. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. And they wanted us to go a certain way with interviews. And, a lot of it was, bleeping things out. They wanted it to be very, very clean. I mean, I get it. Golf.com is a very clean brand. That's fine. But in today's world, the things that people like to hear is just unfiltered. I mean, we want to just see these guys let it go and have fun. And it took a little bit, but we finally got it to where, you can just, we get the guest, we sit down, we interview them, they edit it, and there we go. It's up to us now, which I like. I want these guys or girls, whoever they are, when they come into our studio and sit down with us, I don't want them to even think there's a microphone in front of them. I don't want to think there's a camera in front of them. I just want to sit down and talk. And most of the time we have a cocktail and we just dive into their lives and what's going on with them and figure it out. At the end of the day, they're like, man, that was fun. That was just a conversation. And that's all I want this thing to be. Because, I mean, we can ask, all this golf stuff that gets kind of boring in my opinion. I want to know about you. I want to know what do you do when we don't see you out there? Like, we see Justin Thomas is crazy intense on the golf course, and he's focused, and he's one of the best in the world, and he's going to continue to win majors. But we got an off week. What's it like? What do you do at night when you're hanging out? Like, I want to know these things. And that's what I think the world wants to know too. I mean, they're fans of these guys, but they don't really know them. And so I think it's cool for us to give, a different perspective.
One of the things you guys have done, which again, I greatly appreciate, is that there is connective tissue to people who have done other things at a very, very high level to the game of golf. And you've identified those people. And yeah, you're out there in an area, and you mentioned Whisperock. It's like fishing with dynamite, the number of people who've been high achievers in a lot of other areas that are members there. But you want to have those conversations. Mark Grace, who you had on recently, brilliant interview. And it was a conversation, like you said. Sean McDonough, who's a broadcaster, and anybody who listens to him, he's as good as anybody who has ever done it. But away from his job, he is wide ass open. And again, those conversations, you are humanizing people who people don't know that much about. Did you realize that fertile ground existed?
I did, because I know, like, the few times that I did get interviewed when I played well, everyone told me how great of an interview I was because I would let it go. I would open up and tell you what I think. I mean, you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. And so I knew I could get this out. Like, it's not digging dirt up or anything, but I knew I could get these guys to relax and open up with me because they trust me. I've had a great relationship with them. I've played golf alongside them. I know a lot of things that a lot of other people don't. And I knew that if I could just convince these guys that, hey, this is going to be fun. This is going to be great for your brand. This isn't just great for us. This is great for you. I mean, our first episode was John Rahm, and we got him to rap a Kendrick Lamar song. And it's just a game changer. I mean, there he is. All we know him as John Rahm, the great golfer who's going to go on and be a superstar. But here he's really funny, and he just rapped on a show. Like, that's probably got to think his team's got to be like, oh dear God, what is happening right now? But at the end, it's just, man, I'm telling you, these guys, they're really, really fun. And most of them have such big personalities. They just don't get the opportunity to show it.
No, they don't. And I also think the environment and who they're talking to, you've engendered a level of trust that you mentioned David Faherty's name. There is nobody since David that can bust balls the way that you do with these guys, because there's a genuine relationship there. And I think it's very valuable to the viewer. Whether it be on your podcast, on the Subpar podcast, or on the radio show Gravy in the Sleeves, but most importantly, to the broader viewer who watches golf. And here's where it gets to where it can be tricky at times, being critical of people and also, Colt, being critical of people that it's not a question of effort, but execution in this game is fickle. I mean, it happens a lot for the best, but it fails at the most critical juncture. Is it hard to be critical?
Yes and no. Like, that's one thing, that's a question that gets asked a lot, and it gets asked of everybody. I go back to Charles Barkley, who in my opinion is the most entertaining TV analyst in the world of sports. Like, I love him. I've picked his brain. He's been awesome to me. And he always says, he goes, it's so funny. Like, I go on TV every night during the playoffs or whatever, and I tell these guys how great they are pretty much 95% of the time. But when they mess up, I call them out, and they call me and they yell at me. And I said, why don't you call and thank me when I praise you the 95% of the time? Like, all I'm doing is my job up here. Like, you messed up. You know it. I know it. The world knows it. Why can't I call it out? That's what I'm getting paid to do. He goes, but I think it's really unfair that I don't get thanked for praising you. So as far as the game of golf goes, like, listen, I've played at the highest level. I know I didn't win, but I still know what it takes to win. I know what these guys are going through. I've hit those shots. And so I feel like it's very, very fair for me if I want to criticize, if I think the time is right to criticize them. And I hope that we have a good enough friendship that they're not going to get upset about that. I remember one of the first ones I was doing it, I was walking with Rory McIlroy, who's, I mean, I said on air this weekend, I said, if I had any hair left, I think I would pull it out, because he drives me absolutely nuts watching him play golf. It's at 350 down the middle of every fairway. I'm like, you should win every week. It's ridiculous where you play from. It's not even fair. But we all know he struggles with his short irons. And we're at Memphis one year, and he's just driving it like a god, like he always does, and hits the just worst wedges I've ever seen. And I was like, I'm pretty sure he hits his 3-wood straighter than he hits his lob wedge. And he went back and watched the broadcast and heard it. I'm on the range the next day, and he walks by me and he looks at me and he goes, "So I hit my 3-wood straighter and my lob wedge, huh?" And gave me a slap on the butt with his club. And I was like, I just kind of smiled and he goes, "You're right." And he laughed and walked away, which Rory's one of the nicest in the world. But, you know, I think it's part of my job, and I hope these guys understand that. It's nothing mean. I mean, I like Charles. I'm amazed every time I walk out there and watch these guys play golf. Like, it's just a whole nother level. It's like, I bring up Justin Thomas, and we talked about Mito Pereira, how it looked like he got electrocuted there on 18. And you said how great the greats are at slowing things down. And that's the one thing. If you watch that final round, I mean, the touch shots that guy hit coming down the stretch. I know it's a 79-yard lob wedge, which is routine for these guys in the first playoff hole, but off a downhill lie, right to left wind, you know, thousands of people around the green, the pressure of winning a major championship, for him just to take that nice, long, slow swing, skip it in there to 7 to 6 feet, when most of the time your adrenaline's coming, you come over the top, you get on top of it, pull it long left 30 feet. Like, it's just so impressive to watch, man.
It is. I got to ask you, you mentioned Rory. I was told that Sunday at one point, and this was obviously not on air, you said something to the effect of, if I drove it where you did, it would have just been me and Tiger. And his response was, "Fuck you, Colt."
I don't know if it was exactly that, but I was like, my God, if I drove it where you did, I wouldn't be carrying this damn microphone around right now. I'll tell you that. I mean, it really is. It's silly. Like, he's one of the best. Like, he talks to me going up and down pretty much every fairway. Like,
Yeah.
it's awesome. And we're going back and forth at it. And I'm like, can we play a scramble together sometime? I mean, this would be so much fun. Like, he's hitting number 9 at Southern Hills. He drove it over the crosswalk both days, which that crosswalk is there because there's not going to be any golf balls up there. That's why they let the people walk there. And he's flying it over. I said, the gallery didn't even have to stop when Rory was hitting. They could have kept on walking because it just flew over their damn head. It is, it's silly, man. The guy is so talented and he's so nice. I love the guy. But yeah, we draw back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, well, you know, and that's the thing about it is that, you know, when you are as balanced as you're not trying to be, you just are. But it is funny. Jay Billis was just sitting in this seat interviewing Marty Smith. And the number of times he's told me about coaches texting him like, what, you know, and he's like, really? I have praised you upside and down. Yeah. And the one time that I'm critical of a set you run and I get a text like, where are all the texts when I'm saying you're one of the best in the game? But that's I mean, the rabbit ears are not for the compliments. It's for the critiques.
Oh. But these guys like to lie to everybody and say, "Oh, when I'm not playing, I
don't listen."
Oh, bullshit! You watch every single second of it because you know that's why you know what I said. But you know, just the relationship I have with these guys is awesome. One of my favorite things that has happened so far, you know, in my short career was at the Byron Nelson just a few weeks ago. We're going out Friday afternoon, and you know the groupings are not that great except for Dustin Johnson, Xander Schauffele, and Kevin Kisner, and none of them are playing good. It's like Dustin shot 500 the first day, but they're 2 over. They're all 2 over the second day going into the 8th hole. And so I'm like, what are we going to do? Like, there's no one's playing good. Everybody else is shooting 15 under par. So I'm standing on the 8th tee getting ready to go on air, and here they all come onto the tee. And I said, listen, guys, it's hot as shit out here. I got all this equipment on. I ain't doing this to watch some bad golf. I need y'all to turn this thing around right now. And they all start laughing. We had a great time. They all get hot, start making crazy amount of birdies. Xander makes a 15-footer, looks back at me and just gives me the finger after it goes in and says, let's go. And he went on to birdie 8 of the next 10 holes or whatever and almost won the golf tournament after being 8 shots off the cut line, you know, with 15 holes to play Friday.
You know, I've people who, you know, dip their toe in the water, and there's been a lot of people over the years who came into the studios, would do a week, they were injured, whatever, at the crossroads. And I always thought to myself, I would never say that to people who had done it, but to people I work with, you either can or you can't. And it's not that you can't get better at doing television. You have to have the gift of gab. And you have that, and that's great. But the thing that kind of threw me over the top thinking, wow, he's going to really be good at this, was that the farmers, I think it was last year, and you were out on the golf course and you've got chatter in your ear. And the people who don't know the dynamics of television, for people who are out on a golf course, all you got is voices. And they're not necessarily clear all the time. And then basically you got about 8.5 seconds to make a damn point and get the hell out until the next time they're ready to tee you up. You either can or you can't do that. Did you feel comfortable right away in the environment of soundbite television?
I did. I really did. Once I got on the ground, I did. Now in the booth, I didn't when I first did it first because I didn't know what was going on. Obviously, there's stuff happening. You're responsible for way more groups. When I got on the ground and knew I had these 3 guys or these 2 guys to focus on, and I can start thinking of stories that I've had with them or what they're good at, what they're not good at, and the fact that I get to look at a shot and assess it as a player. Like I've been here. I know what they're going to do. I felt comfortable immediately.
The byplay that you have with Faldo, not easy. I mean, he is Sir Nick, but there is you can tell he's amused. You can tell he's engaged, and again, you're not sitting next to him. You're down there, and right away you had a vibe with him. Did you feel before you did it, whether you had spent a little time with him, gone out, had a drink, had dinner, did you feel like there was going to be something there with you and him?
No, honestly, I didn't. I mean, I think people that know him, I mean, he's an interesting character. He's different. But it's been great. Like we are very, very different people, obviously. And I think that's why it works. But, Nick's hard to peel back. You don't get it. You don't get the inside info with him. So we hadn't spent a whole lot of time together or anything. It was just, here we go. And Jim Rickoff, who's legendary producer at CBS, does all the football, does golf part of the time. He said, listen, if you're going to go down in flames. Like, just give me everything you got. Throw it out there. And I was like, all right. So one day I was like, I'm going to take a little shot. Because Nick pokes fun at me all the time about being fat and being bald and all this. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not scared to take a shot back at you. You might have been better at golf than me, but that doesn't mean you know more about golf than me. Like, you're just better at it. So I feel like I can hold my own when it comes to talking golf. So he said something one day and I took a shot right back at him and it kind of piqued his interest, I think. I was like, okay, this guy's not scared. And so, it's been awesome. And after that started to happen, we'd go off camera and he's like, hey, I like this. Let's keep doing this. So he's been a big supporter of mine. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, I respect the hell out of what he did as a golfer. I mean, there's not many that had a better career than he did. But like I said, it's a show. So let's have some fun with it.
And then Nantz, you're not working with a living legend who's in twilight. First of all, the guy was doing the Masters when he was 26. He's one of the most important voices in the history of the medium, and he's still in his prime. What is it like to work with somebody who has the profile and the resume of Jim Nantz?
I can't believe I get to do it. Honestly, like it's that cool. I mean, I grew up listening to him, obviously, whether it's golf, football, NCAA, whatever it is, it was Jim Nantz. I mean, he's, in my opinion, he's the best to ever do it. There's a couple other guys up there that you could compare to him, but it's unreal. The first time he ever sent it down to me was at the PGA Championship last year at Kiowa, and I'm like, holy shit, I cannot believe Jim Nantz just said, Colt, what do you got down there? Like, it's crazy. I mean, he's a polarizing figure too, and for him to be as great to me as he's been, I mean, we've had dinner, we've had talks, and it's just been so cool and so special. I mean, he's the best. It's just so hard to describe. Like I can't believe I get to work alongside him. And he loves it. I mean, we text back and forth all the time about things, and he's got a great personality, a great sense of humor. He's witty. It's a treat, and I'm so lucky.
A couple of things. I know you've got a show to do. I've got to get you out of here, but a couple more things.
I can talk all day.
I know you can. The Phil thing. Where is this road going, do you think, for him?
Where do I want it to go, or where do I think it's going to go?
Well, you can answer it both ways.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a huge Phil fan. Like I said earlier, like he's been great to me.
Yeah.
We have a great relationship. I want him to come back and play on the PGA Tour. That's where he belongs. He's one of the greatest to ever do it. I thought it was downright sad he didn't get to defend his title at Southern Hills. Whether he would have played good or not, I don't care. What he did at Key Island was so incredible, so historic. Like he deserved that right to defend, and he could have defended. I mean, they didn't tell him not to play. Right. But man, I don't want to use the line "everybody makes mistakes" because that didn't go over too well for somebody recently.
No, it did not.
But what he said was not right. But it's also words. Like we've all done it. Like he didn't hurt anybody. Like he just said some things that were not not appropriate. And whether they were taken out of context or not, whether it was off the record, on the record, that's not my business. I wasn't there. But I feel like we can forgive Phil Mickelson at some point. In my opinion, I wish he would come out in front of everybody in person and give a statement and face the music, because whenever he does decide to play golf, no matter where it's at, he's going to have to face the music and he's going to have to answer some tough questions.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
But he's done so much good for the game of golf. You know, I mean, 98% of the stuff he's done for the game of golf has been fantastic. It's been awesome. It's just, I hope this is not what he's remembered for.
I hope not either. And I do think time is a hell of an elixir. And as I did some interviews on some various channels on Sirius last week, and the point I made was, look, this is not good and this is a dark time for him. But I also remember Alex Rodriguez getting kicked out of baseball, and now he doesn't have one network job, he's got two.
It's a great point.
You know, time is on everybody's side, and I think that, you know, whatever level of contrition that he's willing to share, I just wonder when it's going to be. And with that, the LIV Series, will the LIV Series put a dent into the PGA Tour at any point, do you think?
It's so weird, and it's such a tough topic of conversation, because it's like it's been hanging around. Yeah. It goes away, it comes back. You know, I mean, they're getting ready to go in 2 weeks. The money thing, they're not going to ever go away because they're not going to run out of money. It's just whether or not people are going to be entertained by this. Like, my whole deal is guys like Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, the money doesn't matter. You can give them $200 million. They don't care. They don't even know how much money they have right now. They got so much money. It doesn't. So whether you play for 50 million, 10 million, it doesn't matter. They play for a lot of money on the PGA Tour, and it's a great place. And these guys didn't grow up saying, I want to win on the LIV Tour. I don't want to win the team event. They want to win the Masters. They want to win the PGA Championship, the US Open, the Open Championship. So I don't see how it's going to work. I mean, because at no point in my opinion, do I think that Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Jon Rahm see a guy that they know that they are better of, whether it be the 300th ranked player in the world, go over there and make $15 million and be like, I should be doing that. I want that. I don't see that.
Yeah.
And I don't see people wanting to tune in to watch guys that aren't the best in the world, no matter how much money they're playing for. That doesn't interest me. I mean, great. A Korn Ferry Tour player can have a putt for $6 million on the last. It's great. I hope he makes it. It's a lot of money for him, but that's not TV. That's not watching Justin Thomas and these top players battle it out coming down the stretch to win a major championship.
Yeah, the thing, and I agree with all of that, is there is no business model here. So it's not as if they have to get to ever being profitable, or they have to look at metrics when it comes to viewership and go, yeah, we're making progress. It's not about that. So when some of these guys start turning up at these events and finishing fourth and making 1.7, yeah, their guys are beating their head against the wall on the PGA Tour. They're not necessarily the biggest stars, that you know, some foundational bricks that are part of, you know, the makeup and the tapestry of the PGA Tour on a regular basis. I can see them making the jump. I mean, it's obscene money. I
can see a lot of the players that are down the world rankings making the jump. 100%. Yeah. I don't see any of the top 10 in the world doing it.
Okay.
And that's where, if they don't have any of those players, I don't think it has any legs. Like, I mean, you can pay a quarterback that's not NFL caliber $100 million. Doesn't mean someone's going to come watch him play football. Like, that's just not how it works. I mean, you want to watch the best of the best do it. And listen, I'm interested to see what happens. I think, you know, a little bit of challenge for the PGA Tour is good. Like, hey, let's get compared to other sports, golfers aren't paid what NBA players are, what Major League Baseball players are. So, yeah, do I think they deserve more money? Absolutely. But they all are in a pretty good spot as it is. But if you're a player down the road, you're in your 40s, what Jason Kokrak said on your podcast, at least he's honest. Hey, I want to make a shit ton of money in 5 years and then go hang out with my family. I'm perfectly fine with that. That's great. That's honest. Go for it. I don't blame him a bit. But if you want to be a Justin Thomas who wants to win 14 majors, a Rory McIlroy who wants to win many more majors and leave his legacy on the game of golf, he's staying on the PGA Tour. They're not going over there.
Yeah, the money thing, when people, and it seems like there are too many people who cover the game who think that money's a problem. I'm like, really? Like, do you have any idea? Like, I'd asked this question recently to somebody. I said, do you know how much Danilo Gallinari, who plays for the Atlanta Hawks, has made in his career? And they're like, who's that? I'm like, yeah, exactly. He's made $157 million, never averaging 20 points a game in the NBA.
Yeah,
PGA Tour players are not overpaid.
I think when J.R. Smith started doing this college golf, they came out and they said that he would be third on the all-time PGA Tour money list. Like, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the amount of money they make is just absurd. God, who is Jimmer Fredette? I met him this year in Scottsdale. Great basketball player. Loves golf. Me and Max Homa were out in Scottsdale. He came up and started talking to us. He's like, I cannot believe I'm hanging out with y'all. I just love golf. He goes, God, I would love to have your job. And I'm like, didn't you just sign for like 3 years, $40 million? He's like, 42, 40 is guaranteed. I'm like, exactly. I was like, don't even tell me you want to switch jobs right now. Yeah, you're making $40 million guaranteed.
Exactly. All right, let me get you out of here with these 5 quick questions. Who has the best rap on the PGA Tour?
Kevin Kisner.
Okay. I asked that question because a couple of years ago, when you were unfettered and not an engaged man, I was told by this multiple major champion that you had the best rap on tour. That's the rap I'm talking about.
Oh, well, that's way different. That's not.
I was going to say Kisner.
He's a happily married man. Yeah, exactly. I was just a big I don't know if I had the best rap. I was just an overachiever. Oh man, that's a tough one. I don't want to get anybody in trouble on here.
Come on.
Obviously one of the young single guys. I thought we were talking about just like best trash talk.
No.
Like that. Oof, boy, that's a tough one. All the guys I hang out with now are married. They're boring. Let me think about that when we go forward. One will hit me.
All right. Who has the best temper on tour? Not the angriest, like the funniest, best. Who's got the most entertaining temper?
Pat Perez, no doubt about it. I mean, he still is one of my favorite people to play golf with. I mean, it's comedy, and he's only mean to himself, which is what's great.
Yeah, that's to me what is a great temper. The anger is all to himself, and he doesn't inflict distraction on other people. He's entertaining the hell out of them, but it's all self-inflicted.
He needs to be on TV more. It's great.
I got to believe that. The thing about him, just as an aside, look, he's in his mid-40s, and he's the same age as Tiger. And the fact that I think one of the most underrated things a guy can do is stay fully exempt until they're 50, and he has a reasonable chance of doing that. That's a hell of a thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's him, Charles Howe, what they have done, unbelievable.
No doubt. All right, who is the best player we haven't heard enough from yet?
Best player we haven't heard enough from yet. I think this kid, Davis Riley, is going to be a superstar. I love his game. He checks all the boxes. Yeah. And he is a very, very hard worker, but beautiful golf swing. He doesn't have any weaknesses. I expect this kid to be a superstar in the game of golf.
He got it. I think at one point he got it to 4 under at some point on the weekend, early, maybe Saturday. Finished, I think, 1 under for the championship. No, he's the goods.
My answer before that was Max Homa, but I think the world's starting to realize how good he is now. I've said when he made $17,000 on the PGA Tour in a season, I mean, I was one of the ones that pulled him aside, and I was like, dude, you're fucking good at this game. Yeah. You gotta realize, like, it's ridiculous. I play a lot with him at home. I've always been a big believer in him, but I think now the world's starting to see how good Max Homa is. Yeah,
and the other thing, we talked about it last week in Tulsa. Everyone's like, well, he hadn't done anything in major. He played in 11 major championships, and he finished tied for 11th this past week, which was his best performance. Yeah, he's gone to another level. All right, the non-golf guest you want the most on the Subpar podcast?
Oh, I mean, it's Michael Jordan. I mean, no doubt. I've had the opportunity to play golf with him. He doesn't do much media.
No, he doesn't.
I think we saw The Last Dance, which is arguably the greatest sports documentary that's ever been created. He's the best, and he loves golf. I mean, we wouldn't even need to talk about basketball.
No,
with him.
I wouldn't.
He loves golf.
I wouldn't want to talk about basketball with him. I mean, if you and Drew go to Grove 23 and just say wherever you say it, your time, your place. I know he's reluctant, but I think you guys can get him. I'm going to work on it. It's just he's such an intimidating figure, right? Like, no doubt. I've been around him, and same thing. Like,
I've been to Vegas with him quite a bit. We talk trash, have fun, but it's like, hey, will you come on my podcast? Like, that's terrifying for me, for me to ask Michael Jordan.
But talking golf, I sat behind the 12th green at Medina at the Ryder Cup in 12 with him. And he's like, I'm like, God, I want to go watch golf. But MJ's just talking. I mean, like, I don't want to leave him either. He can talk all day.
I'll tell you, quick one. I know we got to get going, but
yeah.
Max Homa, we were in Vegas one time, and MJ was there at the same time. And I'd known him for a couple of years. And Max is a huge NBA fan, huge Kobe Bryant, huge Michael Jordan fan. And I was like, you want to meet MJ? He's like, are you serious? And like, he went over, and I was like, this is Max Homa. And Max like literally couldn't talk, just stared at him and shook his hand. It was so awesome. I loved it. But that's what he does to people. Like he's that guy. There's 6-year-olds wearing his shoes that never seen the guy play.
6-year-olds, my 22 and 20-year-old daughters, all they want are Jordans. No, it's absurd. All right, last thing. Who is the best money player at Whisper Rock?
Ooh, that's a good one. Tour player, non-tour player?
It could be whoever. This is their own money.
Yeah. Ches Reeves, a very, very tough beat at Whisper Rock.
Mark Mulder told me that. He said, people, they watch him and they were probably like, oh, look, this guy's a putz on tour. And he's like, this guy shoots 64 with a blindfold on every day at Whisper Rock. Yeah,
he's a tough beat. He comes out on the proper end a lot. There's no doubt about it. The other one is Scott Harrington. He's tough out there as well.
I played in the Pro-Am with him at Sea Island his rookie year. He just gotten his card, so he's playing the fall events. And first of all, I thoroughly enjoyed his company. A huge sports fan, has an interesting collection of teams that he roots for. It's weird. It's very eclectic.
Yes, it's very weird. It's very really weird. Annoying, actually.
But I was like, God, he's got the length he needs. I thought he got closer to the hole. He was like good. I'm like, wow, this guy, it just goes to show you, my God, there's so many guys.
Yeah, he's got a lot of game.
Did you come up with the best rap on tour? Or are you gonna pass? But I'm
actually gonna pass on one question.
Oh my gosh.
I know, I've never passed on a question ever, but that's a tough one. I'm trying to go through and think of all the single guys and who's good with them, and nothing's hits me yet. Maybe I'll text you an answer.
All right, very good. All right, listen, I appreciate the time. I say this as a friend and not to patronize you. I'm proud of you. I mean, you're doing something that is making the viewership of the game of golf more enjoyable, more entertaining. Most importantly, I know you're enjoying it, and I'm happy as hell for you. But thanks for taking the time.
Dude, thanks for having me. I've always been a fan of yours. You've been so great to me throughout my career, playing and now on the media side. Really appreciate it. Anything I can ever do to help you, I'm here for you.
Thanks, buddy. Well, really appreciate Colt taking the time. As you could tell, he really can go all day. And players genuinely, not only do they trust him, they love him. Like all these guys are like his boys. And you can go down the world ranking list, and not only can he get them all on his various programs, he can get them to tell them what's going on in their minds while they're playing competitive golf, which is really valuable when it comes to the viewer in the game of golf. CBS has got a new star, and it's important at a time where a lot of the most important voices are getting older. So I appreciate his time, but most importantly, I appreciate your time listening to this 5 Clubs conversation. We'll talk to you next time.